Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, hello, whatever time it is with you, and wherever you are, thank you for downloading this SmackDown review as part of the WWE podcast. As always, it's an absolute pleasure to have you listening along once again. I'm Amanda, your host of the SmackDown review, and I am very, very late getting the review done this week, and I'm apologising for that off the bat. You guys know what summer's like, I'm sure. So let's dive right in and review the SmackDown that aired Friday the 14th from Boston. And we get our arrivals, firstly Punk, followed by KO. He's a week away from his title shot, which is going to be in Canada. We also have Mello and Corbin. They're going to face off for the title tonight. And we've got Tiffy arriving. She faces JCJ for the women's US title this evening as well. And our first action is Nick Aldis. He's in the ring. And he says that many of us know that Chelsea Green is injured. He says that she suffered a broken orbital bone last week, and he says he has reached a decision on what to do, and he brings out Chelsea. Now, the crowd at this point are actively booing the hell. They obviously think that he is about to strip Chelsea of the title. She makes her way out to a great pop. She is just so incredibly over. Nick says he knows how hard she's worked and how much it all means to her. He says he spoke to medical and he can't let her compete. She asks him not to say it and tells him that she will do anything that she can. He says he hates this part of the job, but he says he needs her to relinquish. The crowd go absolutely mental and we get a no chant starting up. She says that she knew it was too good to be true. She says every time something good happens to her, something rubbish follows, and that's obviously her story. She says she is the perfect opponent for all the girls in the back, but never the champion, never the QB1. The crowd start a "you deserve it" chant. She says, you know how much I've sacrificed to be here. She says I've missed funerals, birthdays, weddings. She says I've left my blood, sweat and tears in this ring. I've broken bones. She's had her face put in pies and cakes and her body put in a dumpster. She says she's had the whole world laugh in her face, but every night she told herself that it was all worth it, as she knew that this moment would come. She tells him of all people should understand, especially after SummerSlam. She says they've both proved it doesn't matter what the people in the back think of them, it only matters what they think of themselves. She says that until someone takes it off her, the title is hers, and then we get a massive yes chant. She shoves the title at Nick and she leaves the ring. Well, she's just a few paces up the ramp. Nick stops her and says as a GM he thinks he's doing the right thing, but as Nick Aldis, the man, he doesn't care what medical says. He says he's going to give her 30 days to get clear, get a face mask or whatever. He says as far as he's concerned, until someone takes it off her, the title is hers, and gives her the title back, which is just epic. Before we can really enjoy that moment, though, we get Gunther's music hit right away, and he comes out to booze. He says enough's enough, no one wants to hear this sob story, and let's put the attention on the important thing in the company, which presumably is him. He gets in the ring, and the crowd are still chanting for Chelsea. Gunther asks Nick why he pulled the four-way on him at SummerSlam. Nick tells him to go away. He says right now he's talking to the women's champ. Gunther tells her, let's be honest, you climbed the ladder and you grabbed the title, and then a week later you bump your face, and now you're out here whining about it. Gunther says him at SummerSlam, he pulled double duty and competed both nights. And he then asks Nick why he added KO to the match. Nick says he didn't add Gunther to KO's match. Nick says, you're the one I did the favour for. I added you to KO's match. Chelsea says, good one, Nick. And Gunther gets right up in her face, telling her to shut up. Chelsea tells him to carry on stroking his fragile ego, and says she looks around the ring and she only sees one champion, and that's her. And as he starts to get aggy, we get Chelsea's husband, Matt Cardona, out to the ring, and he gets in between them. Gunther starts to take the mick out of him, and he says, what are you going to do? You can't do anything to me. Chelsea gets out the ring, and we get Matt Cardona attack Gunther, and it all kicks off. And as we come back from what would be a break if we weren't watching on Netflix, we've got Matt Cardona versus Gunther in a match, and this one is pretty short. They're both dressed in their street clothes, so we get Gunther taking the win, As Chelsea is back in the ring with Cardona, we then get Nia and Lash making their way to the ring. Nia says to Chelsea, not even a week into your reign and you're already injured. She says, sounds like you've got a ticking clock, and seeing as you want to be a fighting champion, why waste time? She says she got screwed out of SummerSlam, and she wants the title. She says, if you don't give me what I want, I have a history of breaking faces around here. That brings out Tiffy, who comes to the rescue, but soon gets laid out by Nia and Lash, and Tiffy gets left lying in the ring. Well, let's just take a deep breath. That was quite an incredible start to the show. 3 separate storylines and angles, all taken nicely in a flow that, to be honest, feels quite unusual and exciting. So first things first, an absolute killer promo from Chelsea, probably her best one I've ever heard her cut. And that is only going to improve her overness with the crowd. And honestly good for Nick, and creative, I guess, for allowing her to keep the title. I see her in some kind of face mask and hopefully on a good run as champion. The Matt Cardona angle in this was actual genius. I mean, of course he is going to come out to defend his wife. And then finally Nia and Lash, well, actually, yeah, Nia did get screwed twice, so she would want a title shot. Cheeky little reference to breaking Becky's face, which was, of course, the moment that gave birth to the man character all those years ago. And finally, Tiffy coming out to help Chelsea. This was, wow, brilliant. Loved this start to the show. And as I said, really, really unusual, but brilliant. Next, we go to a reminder of the events of last week involving Flair and Bliss and the debut of Tatum Paxley. Which again was an absolute stroke of genius, in my humble opinion. We go backstage to Flair and Bliss. Flair is telling Bliss how much she's missed her and thanking her for last week. Bliss tells her that it was also Tatum. Bliss says that she likes Tatum. She reminds her of her, so therefore Flair should like her because she likes Bliss. She asks Flair to be nice to her. Bliss says she needs Flair to be nice about the surprise that Paxley has put on them both. She opens like a door to a storage cupboard. Paxley says she's been working on their new locker room all day and invites them in. Flair and Bliss go in and sort of reluctantly say they love it. I thought this segment was short enough. It was kind of cute. I like how they brought Tatum up. And I also see the jealousy already there from Flair, and I guess maybe this is how they finally split up Flair and Bliss, leaving Bliss with Tatum, which I actually think is pretty cool. Next, we go to a replay from SummerSlam where Randy screwed Cody, and then we get last week's interaction replayed as well. And backstage, we got Aldous with Cody. He tells Nick it needs settling between him and Randy. Nick tells him that Sunday night's main event is around the corner and it's in Atlanta. Cody tells him to make it happen. This brings up Sammy, who says, oh, look, whatever the precious golden boy wants, he gets. And then he goes on about the SummerSlam 4-way again, and takes exception to Cody getting the shot from Punk again, which is when that just say when thing. This makes Cody completely flip out and tells him he won't accept this anymore. He says Sammy can't continue to do this. If he wants a fight, let's go. Sammy reminds him that last time they met, he pinned him clean with no shenanigans. Cody says if you think you can do it again, let's do it tonight, which of course gets a massive reaction from the crowd. Sammy says of course he's challenged him tonight when he can't go. Nick says can't or won't. Nick says what if there was something in it for you? Because that's how you operate these days, isn't it? He says, if you beat Cody tonight, you get the winner of Punk versus KO. Sammy says he's hurt. Nick gives him the opportunity to make the choice himself, so I guess we're going to find out later. And this is nice. Kind of Nick calling Sammy's bluff, clearly not believing that he's that hurt. Will we see Sammy versus Cody tonight? I'm not sure. If we do, it probably won't be shenanigan free. I smell the Viper. Next out this evening, we have got Mello versus Corbin for the US Championship, and this is Mello's hometown, so he gets a brilliant pop from the crowd. This one kicks off after Corbin makes his entrance on a motorbike, which was pretty cool and a little bit Undertaker American Badass-esque. Corbin is looking really strong in the early goings, but Mello is more flippy floppy, and is making that difference count in his own town. This one gets a decent while in terms of time, but ends up as Corbin hits end of days and retain. I don't mind that at all, and please God now he takes that ridiculous white fluff off the belt. Bit of a Vince throwback, having a hometown hero lose, but it's fine. And then now we get Trick out, and Little Yachty tries to attack Corbin from behind with the kendo stick, but Corbin doesn't even flinch, and then is blindsided by Trick himself. Well, Trick's song is still really over. Everyone's singing along, whip that trick, whip that trick. But I do question that. Is that all we've got here? The angle being pushed here feels like he can't do it alone. He needs Little Yachty. And I'm not really sure how much more legs that has got. I do think at some point in the near future, we are going to need to see Trick Williams get rid of Little Yachty, probably turn a little bit more face so he can legitimately face Corbin if that is where they are going. Backstage, we go to Tiffy, who is looking a bit worse for wear, and she's approached by Chelsea, who thanks her. Tiffy says she's fine, she's still going to compete tonight. I hope we aren't setting up for Tiffy to lose the title, but I fear the worst here. Next out, we've got KO, of course, to a massive pop. Everyone is still so pleased and slightly surprised to see him. He's joined by Punk in the ring before he can get a word out. Punk tells KO, you're a lot of things, but you're not a coward. He tells him to go ahead and say whatever he wanted to say to his face. KO says it's ironic. He talks about saying things to his face. However, he chose until he walked away and had his back to him to call him a fat slob, which of course was caught on camera last week. KO says to Punk that a lot of people don't know, but their story starts 20 years ago. He says 20 years ago, me and Phil wrestled for the same indie promotion, and Punk was the big man, and KO was just trying to make his way. KO says he chose to scream at him and berate him in the locker room, which was full of his peers. He says, though, there are a lot of reasons I don't like you, things you said and done, how you treated my friends. KO says everyone in the industry who knows anything hates him. Punk says that being hated by losers is the price I pay to be a success, which is a line we've heard before, but I don't mind it. KO says he sees a locker room full of new people that look up to him, and why. He says, I will never like you because everything you do is performative and never real. He calls him a phony. He says the only reason you came back is because you had no choice. You had screwed things up everywhere else. He says he doesn't respect him at all, and he says regardless of what he thinks, he has done pretty well for himself in the past. And he lists some of his major achievements, and he also says that he main evented WrestleMania against Stone Cold Steve Austin. Punk tells him congratulations. He says he's happy for him, and he says, do you think you would have been given those opportunities if I was still here? Ouch. KO says, why don't you tell everyone why you think that is? Punk says, it's what I think of you, or what you think of yourself, alluding to the fat slob comment. He says he's here on a Friday as undisputed champion. He says he calls out Obafemi and he gets KO instead, which he seems to be quite cross about for some reason. He says he looks at him. This is Punk's KO. He says he looks at him and says he's a tough guy. He says he won't take him lightly, but he also sees a guy who tries to avoid the work and he won't try and be better. And he says he sees him as a bum. Punk says all he's done is evolved, and if KO had done half the work, maybe he would have avoided the Goldberg spear. KO says he doesn't want to be anything like Punk. He says when he looks at Punk, he sees someone who hates himself. KO says he's the same person who Punk screamed at 20 years ago. He's the same fat indie loser he's always been. And the next week, he gets to face him for the title. Punk says he sees himself 20 years ago in KO. KO says he doesn't care what Punk thinks. He says he's regretted for 20 years not punching him in the mouth in that locker room. And KO says he didn't do it then because he knows that Punk would have ruined his career, and he won't do it now, as next week he gets to punch him in the face and take the title. He says he's waited 20 years, he can wait 7 days to beat his bitch ass. Punk says in 7 days he's going to put his fat ass to sleep. So we had a lot of asses here. And I think, wow, you really actually can feel the real beef between these two. I know that allegedly there's also real beef between Punk and Seth, and Punk and a lot of people in WWE still. But you really, really can feel it between these two. It's great to have the actual past be built on in this way, and it has actually made me very excited for Sunday night's main event. The match that is going to happen between these two, and what's going to happen there. Next up, we got Finn backstage with Nick. He says that now he's cooled down, he understands why Gunther and KO were added to the match. They're interrupted by Gunther, who comes in again like body every self. He tells Nick he wants this sorted, and Nick basically says he's sick of Gunther keep interrupting him tonight. Gunther says he doesn't see Finn, all he sees is the shadow of Finn Balor. Finn tells him he's a condescending prick and offers him out for a fight. This is interesting. We do seem to be getting number one contender matches set up all over the place here, and I think that's cool, keeping as many story angles open and running as is humanly possible. Next out, we have got the tag team title fatal three-way, which is Truth and Priest versus the War Raiders versus the MFTs. And the MFTs are accompanied by Haku, who's at ringside. This one goes back and forth, but ends up with the MFTs hitting the Brothers Keeper as they take the victory. Two pretty much crickets, and we have new champs. Now, I'm okay with this. Seems about time the belts were taken off Priest and Truth. I really do want to see Priest go on a singles run. He is far too good to be faffing around in the mid-card with Truth, and that's no disrespect to Truth. It was a nice fun run, but I'm glad it's over. And let's see what the MFTs do with the titles. They have got the abilities to just wipe people out, so it should be interesting story to follow. Next out, we've got Jacy Jayne versus Tiffy for the US title. She's accompanied, as always, by Fatal Influence, which might be the difference maker, as Tiffy currently has no Chelsea, and Chelsea is legit injured, so can't get physically involved even if she does come out. This one kicks off, and pretty early on we get the involvement of Fatal Influence at ringside, which opened things up for Jacy Jayne to attack Tiffy. We do get Chelsea out, but as I said, she's legit injured, so she can't get physically involved in this one. Chelsea is about to get her ass kicked ringside. Tiffy saves her, but this leads to Tiffy getting caught in the rolling encore, and we get Jacy Jayne take the win and is our new US title holder. So, Fatal Influence with all the gold. And I don't hate it. I've liked the way they've been brought up to the main roster. I like the way this story's played out with the bonus angle of the Tiffy and Chelsea partnership. What next for Tiffy? Like Priest, actually, she deserves another run at the title. So let's see how this plays out. Next up, we've got Kathy. She's got Jade. We couldn't go a week without Jade and the B-Card Army. She has them backstage. She asked them how they feel about Tatum Paxley. Jade says, and I don't think there is a hint of irony here, but she doesn't understand why these women can't mind their business. This is Jade Cargill, who can't get anything done without her B-Card Army. BFAB says they look forward to welcoming Tatum Paxley to their show. Still very yawn for me. Hopefully this blows off soon, once and for all. The B-Card Army can then turn on Jade. To be honest, we've got absolute A-grade, platinum, A1 heels on SmackDown with Fatal Influence, and as good as Fatal Influence are, Jade and her B-Card Army are equally as bad. The journey of two heel factions and how completely different they are and how completely differently over they are is quite stark. And now we've got Fatal Influence with all got gold, Jade and her B-card army with no gold, and with B-Fab and Meat Chin just hanging on. I think it's quite stark, and I really do think that WWE Creative need to take notice of that, because the WWE fans have more than definitely loudly spoken. Next out, we've got Cody versus Sammy, and as I look at the timer at the bottom of the screen, we've got less than 10 minutes. Actually, we've got 6 minutes remaining on the show, so I'm not really sure what is going to happen here. But as kind of roughly predicted, obviously it's shenanigans. Before Sammy even hits the ring, we get Randy attack Cody from behind. He absolutely flattens Cody. Cody, though, counters the RKO and looks for Crossroad, but Randy rakes his rise and continues the beatdown. They continue to brawl, and we get steps, we get rubbish bins, we get chairs, and we basically go off air like that. So again, in my opinion, I think this was another great show. We're 2 for 2 at the moment. We got so much women's action, which is brilliant to see, and the crossovers between the men and the women's and back to the women's in that opening segment, I can't tell you how much I enjoyed that. I thought it was brilliant, and it's the kind of storytelling that I think we've all been crying out for. Let it link up. There are some real obvious things that can be explored with these stories as little diversions, and they were tonight, which was brilliant. We got Randy totally off the rails and Fake No Influence with all the gold. So for me, a very solid show tonight. I'd say an 8.5 out of 10, and it was really, really enjoyable. Guys, I know this has been a slightly shorter show this week. Again, my apologies for getting it out so late, but I had quite a busy weekend. And obviously, probably a lot of you have already seen SmackDown and listened to some other podcast reviews on the show. So I didn't just want to go round and round the roses again, but equally, I wanted to get something out to you. So apologies for all that. And that just about does it for this week's show. As always, thank you for having me in your ears once again. And remember, until next time, be kind.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.